What's happening, everybody? Hope all is well. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're doing another Tide Talk. And that's right. Javon, he could not get away that easily. He's with us today, back in the saddle. Here he is. Javon, what's up?
What's going on, guys? It's good to be back.
Yeah, thank you so much for being back, man. And today we wanted to sort of look into or tackle laziness, which is a lot of people sometimes they'll call people in the community laziness, or that'll be a term that's used a lot of times. And, I think that it's not always somebody being lazy. Yes, there could be a component of somebody not wanting to do certain things, but I also think it's a little bit of a drift within them, lack of purpose, whatever it is. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, man. I think, when it really comes to especially within the community, right? We're talking about people who the world would say don't have much, right? But in reality, they have a lot. I always think the problem is when it comes to laziness and that perception. Yes, there are aspects where it's like you can be lazy in your thinking, you can be lazy in your body, you can be lazy with certain aspects that can propel your life. But a lot of it's not just people in the community, it's people everywhere. And the reason I say that is because it stems from broken focus, right?
Yeah.
The moment you lose focus, anybody can drift. And I think drifting is the number one thing that keeps people from succeeding. And what starts to happen is, when we're looking at people within a community, they don't have that anchor from somebody to reel them back in. You get what I'm saying? To get back on track to that focus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point. Having somebody there for guidance, but also support to be able to talk that person up and to be able to encourage them is extremely important. And that is one ingredient that is lacking within the community. That there's a lot of, I noticed sort of gossip. There's a lot of negative talk a lot of times, or a selfishness of what are the things that I can get, but not what I can give.
Yeah.
There. So I think, finding an acknowledgement of that up front is important too.
Of course. I think when people have a hard time giving, right, that stems from a heart issue, right? So I think a lot of times we push people to say, man, do the hard work to get done, do the hard work to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's truth, right? You gotta do the hard work.
Yeah.
Nothing is easy, but something could be simple. But in reality, I think when you miss the hard work, that if you never address the hard work in a person, they are very open to drifting down the road. You get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah. How do you address that hard work in somebody that's really in that state?
So you have to really, and this is when the path to the person makes sense. Every person is different and everybody goes through different trauma. So I have found when you really sit with people and they, you actually hear them, and you hear their story, there is trauma that they have suppressed that they've never been able to release. And what starts to happen is when you go throughout your life, when challenge happens again, it may flare up something that you suppressed years ago.
Right.
And now that starts to make you think about that, which now changes your thinking. And now that person is just like, man, I don't know what to do with my life anymore.
Yeah. There's a part of me that I can't say I blame certain people certain times, because if I'm in a position myself, if I were to put my shoes in somebody else's, and maybe there's drug use or there's mental health, and I'm not on my medication, and maybe nobody cares, and I feel like nobody does, but I do have resources to survive. I'm able to go to get a meal. I'm then able to sleep somewhere where I'll relatively be okay, but then I could do drugs when I want and things like that. So there's no accountability on me as well. And then people feel forgotten. They get lost in the system. They're not able to go here when they need to. How important is personal accountability with something like that? Or somebody realizing all right, this is where I am, taking stock and then moving forward with an action plan. If there's no purpose,
that's the thing though.
We're just going to perpetually, they're going to be in a wheel and never get out.
But that's the thing about personal accountability.
Yeah.
Here is the thing, guys, it may be the only thing that you have, right? So when we're looking at that, if you know, right, I truly believe that people know when they have just went downhill, like that slippery slope turned into a tunnel of just darkness, and people feel it.
Yeah.
And that's why they keep going, because they're like, I'm down so far, I don't know how I'm going to get out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that may be the only thing that you have, which if you're in that much pain, you got to turn that into purpose. You got to turn that into motivation, because it could be the only thing that you have to pull you out of it.
Yeah. And I think your mold needs to get broken. You need to be broken before you could be rebuilt a better person. And it's a mindset thing.
Absolutely.
If people recognize that in their head and they have an understanding of, all right, this is a season. Yeah, I'm low, but I do have food on my plate. I have, people that I could talk to, or missions that I can go to, or whatever it is, just being grateful. Because I think that in society in general, there's a lot of blessings and not enough appreciation. And that's one thing too. So first recognizing, being accountable, being grateful for the things that we have, and then having a plan to do something, because that individual that's seemingly low at that time, they could flip it and teach somebody else how to get out of it someday in the future. I mean, there's a lot to that person that they could be on the other side and realize, wow, I never thought in a million years I could be here.
I always think about it like when we're looking at people going through stuff, especially in America, right? And I always got to point out that you live in America, because you live in the land of opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
So a lot of time, this is when accountability comes into play, where it's like, what do you want? Right? Because at the end of the day, if it's just money, you could go get money in America. Right? It may not be $50,000 salary, but you can get $5 for that day sweeping something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, as the word says, despise not the days of small beginnings. I think a lot of times the laziness stays stuck in a person because they aren't willing to rebuild themselves again. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, let's talk about the rebuilding, but the mental capacity that it takes to rebuild.
Right. You got to believe it. You got to believe it. You got to find a way to dig down and really believe. Belief is number one, and then self-care. I think if you don't believe it, you don't have that vision and you don't have that purpose established. And you got to know in your heart something that you're willing to die for. And if it's good to help people, I think God will open up the fruits eventually.
Of course.
But I also feel like how far down somebody is where God plants them. And they have the ability to go up and really go higher than that low point.
Yeah.
Where they're anchored. And they're meant for something much bigger, because the devil sees that in them and he's coming after them specifically for that reason.
Yeah. It's the reality of the situation. Because I think, like, when we talk about suffering and we talk about pain, all suffering doesn't lead to death. All pain doesn't lead to death. So you have to really identify the season that you're in and why are you still suffering, right? There may be, like we just talked about, you may be in a season of rebuilding where this is how God moves, man. God will literally strip you of everything to build you back up into something great.
Yeah.
Because the person that you are now will not probably be the person that he needs you in that position later.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that I think a lot of people need to get out of them, which we were just talking about this at breakfast. Humility.
Humility is key.
Humility is everything, bro.
I know.
And pride comes before the fall.
And I was telling you that even in my network in business and just in life in general, as soon as I opened up being more humble, sharing more things about myself, more vulnerability, it ended up really connecting me to people like I wouldn't thought. So admitting your mistakes, admitting that here are the things that I've done. I can be somebody. And I think it's our responsibility. I think it's the community's responsibility. I think Waymaker mentorship, when as soon as that's launched and fully up and running, is going to be a big part of talking people up and being there and filling in that friend gap that nobody has.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than having that type of relationship with somebody where you're talking each other up, you're encouraging, you're rooting for each other, you're collaborating, you're brainstorming. People need to be in environments like that, and they're stuck in complaining, gossip, being in that low state, that vibration that just is contagious, man. When all the people are just numbly talking smack, they're just, here's the things that I don't have. Here's what's wrong with this system, all that. It's just contagious and it's not good.
It keeps you in the drifting stage, man.
Yeah.
Because if if you get around a whole bunch of drifters, you're going to drift.
Yeah.
Right. If nobody is ever looking back and be like, man, we need to get back to the land because we're going too far. If nobody ever acknowledges that,
Right.
then eventually this is when you're out there so far that God himself is going to have to help you, bro, because you're just too far from the land. And I think a lot of people, proximity is the one thing that keeps people drifting, right? I think it's actually two things. Let me expound on this. Isolation and proximity will always keep you in a drifting mode.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why communication, like verbally expressing what you're going through people who are trusted sources. But then also having a community of people that have been where you are and understand how to get you out of that is the biggest asset that a person can invest their time in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I think when it comes to that, man, like the enemy wants to isolate you. Right. And get you to that drug state, get you to that addiction.
Yeah.
Right. So he could pull you away so you can just focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing is they go to a group of people who groups of people in the midst of your dysfunction may feel like comfort, but it's false. Because they don't want you to get better. They just want you to keep each other warm.
It's a numbness comfort that doesn't really amount to much.
Heavy on the numbness.
Yeah. It's that numbing feeling that you get, that gossip mode where you don't even realize you're doing it. You kind of just, your voice kind of gets carried away.
It's like
with
vomit.
But it's easy. It is like vomit.
Yeah.
You don't even realize what you're saying.
And that type of liquid, right? Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
If gossip is vomit, right? That type of liquid doesn't produce fruit.
Right.
Right. Now it can produce fruit.
Yeah.
But the fruit we're talking about is good fruit within a community. So I think, man, when it comes to that, we have to be careful with our proximity to people who want to pull us under, like pull us down, I would say.
Right. So who we surround ourselves around is really
always
key. We are the 5 people they say you're surrounded with. You become them.
Oh, yeah.
You end up like feeding off of anybody. If you're with positive people, that's gonna radiate and you're gonna pick up on that frequency.
Because it's supposed to, man. I think the practical thing that everybody could look at is put a rotten apple or like a rotten tomato in the midst of good tomatoes or good apples.
Yeah.
Eventually the whole basket is going to become rotten.
It's true.
It's the power of being connected.
Too. Right.
Yeah. So it's like, if you want to do better. So I think it's this, Jeff, let me ask you a question. Like, how do you think we're supposed to get people, which I don't think we have this power, but getting people to the point of wanting to do better?
So I think we do have the power.
Oh,
I think we do, man. I think that when I met Daryl and just the interaction alone, we crossed the barrier and that. And if people go to the very first raw episode of that recording, there was something to it that there was a formula. So the first step, really, the path is to the person, is to connect to that individual, is to have certain skills, how to radiate positivity. Nerves are normal, art of asking questions, lead with empathy and understanding. And that repurposed story of Daryl. So then that connection is there because the path is to the person. And once that connection is there, that's where the true value comes from. That's where you're able to get that information. But you have to stay on that boat. So what we'll do with the mentorship program is we'll teach those principles on the back end, but we'll meet somebody where they're at. We'll say, hey, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What's your purpose? If they don't know, there's a formula to a way we could extract that through workbooks and other things indirectly. But the key is filling in that friendship gap, is filling in that, not having 30 caseworkers or anything like that. One mentorship or mentor, having one wave rider or mentoree, where we develop a roadmap specifically for that person written, and we're there in the passenger seat while they drive alongside them. And then that, when we do Project Dignity, it'll be a live-in. So we'll be able to test out the curriculum and principles and segue eventually into the campus, because the campus is going to have a lot of servant, conscious, positive leadership type curriculum molded into like money management and other mental health strategies, things like that, that'll do that. So I think that, and it's been a minute. I had to get another job, obviously, so I haven't been to the mission as much as I've wanted to lately. But really, it's about breaking bread, going to the mission. It's about being present and talking to people and connecting them and speaking to them like they're a person, even if they're a little off, maybe mental health wise or anything like that. And I think those are the gaps that are really missing. And that's the barriers that were broken with CJ, with Hal. So even though there's a slowdown sometimes, it's just nothing that I'll ever quit on. I'll never give up on this thing because of it. It's something that has it.
Like, I don't think it's ever a slowdown, right? And this is what I mean by that, man.
Yeah.
Like,
to me, it's a lifetime. You know that.
Shout out to the church that I did a Bible study, right, in the book of John for 1 year and 7 months, right? Every single Wednesday. And right now I'm on sabbatical from a 1 year and 7 month teaching of one book.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, here's the thing. It's not that I'm taking a break because I'm tired. I'm gifted for this. I'm called to this, right? But my wisdom as a leader would say if I never step back, I would never ever know if the fruit actually manifested. So there's certain seasons where when you have completed enough work pouring into somebody, you have to step back to see that what you put in them actually stick. And I think this is the power of mentorship, discipleship, whatever way you want to put it, where when there's a season that you have to step back to now refocus on something that will help you grow to come back.
Yeah.
You're going to see if what you put in them actually enhances the community.
Yeah, that's true.
If not, it's still some work to do.
And how amazing too. Like my thought was originally, all right, the mentorship program, I'm gonna lay that out on the back end, start really to dive deep because we have it. There's a bit of it proven, but definitely need to dive more into the curriculum. And then, all right, I'll do that. But then God calls me for Sister Rosemary Cameron, which we're doing an exclusive Thai Talk for, to focus on that. Even though it might not be as public, we'll put it on social media, but it's also about being responsive, responding to any your calls that you have, especially if they're going to lead to something that's good. And my learning curve has definitely been presence through this process and patience as much as I can be. Because you're right, it's not a slowdown. It is a season of learning. And it's how you view failure. So you're not somebody that's lazy. You're somebody that's drifting right now. And in order to get that anchor, you have to first recognize it, be humble about it, and admit it. That's the very first step. And then develop a plan of action and purpose.
And like I said with a lot of things, when it comes to laziness, right? Very, very few people are lazy if you really look at this, right? Because I had said this at breakfast. Very few people are lazy because they can be very motivated in negative activities and be very consistent and persistent in that negative activity.
Okay.
So it has to do with priority. Why are you lazy with your priorities, but you are very consistent with something that is negative?
Which one is harder? Doing the right thing and then working towards building yourself up, or being negative?
They're both
talking all the time. I think being negative and being in the like the trap of laziness or like talking smack all the time is easier than it is. I think it's harder to be a good person, to work on yourself, to do that. But it's suffering that's good. Like how you suffer, or suffering well, if I should say. Like I'm in pain because over my right arm is bothering me because I helped an older woman carry some bags up the stairs. I could deal with that. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
But if it's sore because I punched you in the face, like I'm going to feel a certain way about my arm's going to bother me more.
Yeah.
It's like the work there's a fruit to it. So it's not as bad. I think people are so depressed is because their work is not amounting to anything. They feel like they're not sufficient enough. I'm alone. You nailed it with being secluded.
Though. You know what I'm saying? So it's the perspective. It's if you are in this to have a self-gratification, like everything is about you. It's like, I'm doing this because I can do this. And listen, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a reward for something. But at some point, when it comes to the vision of a certain thing, that's why everybody don't have vision. They have sight, but they don't have vision. Because when you have sight, sight is something that you see in front of you, right? It's something that's tangible, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
But when you have vision, that goes beyond anything that you can ever establish. So you move differently, you give differently, you talk differently when you're giving to people, because you're not in this for right now. You're in for the marathon.
Yeah, exactly. The marathon, you nailed it. There's a finish line, there's an end in mind. There's a result in mind. So even in the middle, when it's tough, you could see that finish line there. It's going to give you a reason to push through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that anchor.
They don't have a reason.
Yeah.
You have to, I think that's always purpose, reasoning, all of that. You have to go back to that. A lot of people don't know why they get up every single day. They think it's to pay bills, right? They think it's to, I got to do everything for my family. A lot of homeless people right now live that way because they thought that was their identity.
Right.
And they ended up failing as a father,
either a job loss,
as a provider. Exactly. Because
Yeah,
you thought that your roles in life was your identity. And when your roles fail you, now you're out there be like, what did I do wrong?
Right. So identity, you nailed it right there. So how do you view yourself, or what are you worshiping? Is it like, getting out just for money or anything like that? But do you think that identity is important, and which identity you think would be the best for people to lean towards to be able to make it?
That they're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
That you have a purpose that's outside of just paying bills.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like it's so much more. Like, we weren't created to pay bills and die.
Yeah.
That's just the honest truth. You were created with a gift. And I think the most beautiful thing is to understand, man, why am I here in this world? And that's really a deep dive into your soul.
Right.
So I think once people get that, when they figure out the reason why they're here, they'll figure out who they are very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So practically, to top it off, for people out there right now that are struggling, maybe people point them and say, their family, you're being lazy, you're out there on the streets, and they don't have a real understanding of what that person is going through. Speaking to the person really on the street, what do you think are some practical things that they could do? Maybe, number one, just try to write down things that they could admit their situation, or try to take stock of their situation? Or what do you think the first step?
I would say take a step back,
get some silence,
and find one thing to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And that step back is every day.
Yeah.
Every day you have to practice this, because that's the hard work, which goes to the heart. So you have to take a step back and realize, because I remember when I was going through something crazy, like I was out here eating canned beans and chips at the corner store. And I said, man, somebody don't have a roof. Though they don't have a bed.
Exactly.
So I'm looking at my situation like I'm the only one going through it in the world. But when I walk outside my house, somebody's on the corner. Right. You get what I'm saying? So you have to take a step back, be grateful for one thing, right? And this doesn't happen overnight. You have to be consistent the same way that you're consistent in your negativity.
Right. You
have to start producing that stamina to start to look at the world differently and your situation. So I think gratitude.
Yeah, I think gratitude, and then just trying to make adjustments to the way somebody speaks. Just the speech of, maybe say one or two things, or compliment one person per day. So if you're doing that, just send out a compliment, or maybe give one thing that you normally wouldn't to somebody else, instead of maybe taking of that, just to offset it. But this was a really good talk, man. I think that because I feel like people throw laziness around, but it's not always the case. It also somebody's situation, their past, their history. We can't point fingers like that, and we always tend to categorize things and just high level, just put things in a box. Yeah, it's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah. So guys, listen, if you are drifting and you are out there too far at sea, find the lifeboat. Find the lifeboat, right? Because there's always somebody in the water looking for you. You just have to want to be saved. So that's it, brother.
And look out, Wavemaker Mentorship. We're coming eventually. So keep an eye out. We appreciate it. Love you guys. Everybody in the community, shout out Morristown and beyond. Let's get it. Thank you again, Javon, for always a pleasure having you, man. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.